They say sin hides in the shadows, but sometimes sin is so normalized, we stop calling it what it is. It will come from truth, and from finally asking the questions our colonizers never wanted us to ask.
Something rather disturbing.
Wait, hang on. Could you ask, was that young man having relations with that donkey?
They say yes, that's right. No trouble at all.
Normal. So you all
Que ustedes todos lo hacen.
enjoy the company of donkeys?
Basically, that's the first wife, the first lover that they have.
That's nice.
All the donkeys fair game? Every single donkey? Or male and female?
Only female.
So they don't have sex with male donkeys? That would be what, weird?
Oh, we'll be photographing donkeys then, I guess. Excellent.
We're leaving. No, leave. No.
What?
We're leaving.
It seems like a really nice little place. Jeremy, why do we have to go?
What if I told you that the bizarre stories of boys sleeping with donkeys in parts of Colombia's Caribbean coast aren't just about rural customs or sexual deviance, but about colonization and Christianity? This isn't a myth. In some rural towns of Colombia, especially along the Caribbean coast, young men are reportedly introduced to sex through donkeys. To outsiders, it sounds horrifying. To some locals, it's been treated as a so-called rite of passage. But the real question is, how did this even begin? Let's go back to when the Spanish arrived. They didn't just conquer the land, they conquered the soul, with a Bible in one hand and a whip in the other. Christianity was forced upon Indigenous and African peoples. Spiritual systems were demonized, bodies were shamed, sex became sin. Under Catholic colonialism, sex outside marriage was condemned. Masturbation was evil. Girls were to be protected pure. But boys, they still had urges. And the system, it gave them no healthy outlet. So in the silence between shame and secrecy, the donkey became a victim, a surrogate, an animal no one would defend. Because it wasn't about desire, it was about dominance, about confused masculinity, about a religion that taught control, but not care. Colonial Christianity created the soil where this horror could grow unchecked, where boys were taught to conquer, not connect, to dominate, not understand.
This isn't a story about donkeys. It's a story about what happens when humanity is denied its wholeness, when colonial morality shames the body, but never teaches the heart. The healing won't come from silence, it will come from truth.
On the Caribbean coast of Colombia, some young boys grow up being told their first sexual experience should be with a donkey. It sounds unthinkable, yet in some rural towns it's spoken of casually, seen as a rite of passage. But what's the difference between that and the priest in the confessional, who preys on a child? One happens in poor villages, the other happens behind church doors, under stained glass. One is called ignorance, the other, a mistake. But both are abuse. Both are trauma. Both are products of religious systems that preached sexual guilt without teaching emotional health. Christianity didn't just create shame, it created silence. In Colombia, boys aren't taught to love or understand their bodies. In Catholicism, priests are told to deny theirs completely. So sex becomes a secret, desire becomes dirty, and power becomes a weapon. So yes, donkeys and children might seem worlds apart, but in truth, they're victims of the same lie. That holiness means silence. That desire is sin. That control is purity. Until we confront this, we are complicit in a system that shamed natural love, but allowed unnatural abuse.
Are you aware that the Roman Catholic Church has admitted to at least 11,000 separate sexual assaults of Roman Catholic priests upon innocent children? Let me say that again. 11,000 separate sexual assaults against innocent children by the priests of the Roman Catholic Church. At least 4,300 priests are involved. 11,000 acts of child sex abuse in the Roman Catholic Church. At least 4,300 priests are involved. If we are against domestic violence, can I ask you a question? Why do we still have 3 million American African Catholics in the United States of America? How in the hell do you go back to Catholic Mass, black people who claim to be against domestic violence? How do you go back to Catholic Mass? How are you still a member of the Roman Catholic Church when over 11,000 separate incidents of child assault involving over 4,300 Roman Catholic priests? You claim you don't support domestic violence, and you still belong to a church that admits to over 11,000 acts of it. Will the real hypocrite please stand up? Will the real hypocrite please stand up?
And I got molested by like 5 people when I was growing up. How many books do I get?
Now's your chance, Dr. Phil.
Who was your favorite?
No. Jesus.
Who's on this candle?
Dumbledore.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Dumbledore is an old word for bumblebee. Dumbledore is the name of the wise and powerful headmaster of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. He is one of the most beloved characters in the series, and his name reflects his personality. Dumbledore is an old word for bumblebee, which Rowling said she liked because it suggested his love of music and humming. Dumbledore is also related to the word dumber, which means to make a dull sound or thud.
The Palestinian Talmud that supports pedophilia, that a grown man can marry a 3-year-old girl. We're going to put Christ in a cauldron of hot semen. That's demonic.
Tribe and tongue may differ, in brotherhood we stand.
Fortunately, when they stripped out the culture, they replaced it with religion. And religion was no better than the slave plantation, because just like the slave plantation, religion teaches you not to take control of your collective destiny, to leave it up to God. That's no different than the plantation that tells you not to take no interest in your collective destiny, leave it up to the slave owner. So all they did was switch out a white slave owner for a white Jesus. And so now you're still not taking control over your life. You're saying it's up to God. It's up to Jesus. Black people's situation will get better when God decides to make it better. So that same slave conditioning that we got on the plantation, we actually get it inside of the black church today.
Right. The God of the Bible, he's an omnipotent lunatic. He's an insane God. He's a God with petty human emotions. He says, I'm a jealous God. Worship me alone. You don't get that in any of African spirit, not with Kamata, not with Ramasedi, not with Katonda, not with Mudimu. The God who get tired after creating the world in 6 days, get tired and need to rest. A tired God. You don't have that kind of ideas in African spirituality. God is Somandla. Somandla kakhathali. Akalali. Akadla birthday. Now here you are having a God who's got a birthday. He's born on the 25th of December. He's a son of God who is himself God. you know, and then who sent himself on a suicide mission, and in the process he regret why did he send himself, and he began to question his own logic and start to say Eli lama sabatani. Now you don't have that type of thinking in African spirituality. So a God as presented in the Bible, it's got nothing close to God in African spirituality. That is why we say we can't use God to define what we are talking about in African spirituality, because it presents us with semantic and metaphysical problems that have no comparison in African spirituality. You can't compare the problems, both semantic and metaphysical problems, that this very idea of God present to Africa. Look,